DevReach, of course.
Yes, DevReach, and we are back September 11th to the 14th, Boston Waterfront. Come and join us. There's going to be the latest in .NET, .NET MAUI, Blazor, Angular, accessibility, so many things.
I hope to see you there.
Hello, and welcome to Eat, Sleep, Code, the official Telerik podcast. I'm your host, Ed Charbeneau, and with me, as always, is John Bristowe, my co-host. How you doing, John?
I'm good. I'm running late. I apologize for that, scrambling, but with the magic of internet streaming, no one knows. So
that's okay. We are doing our news show today, and it's a little bit of a lighthearted show anyway. So we're going to kick things off with a little bit of Visual Studio Code release info.
Yes.
What's up with Visual Studio Code this week, John?
Yeah, so lots and lots of stuff, actually. They've been really, really busy, more than just the editor. We don't have time to cover all of it, but they've been talking about the language server. They've been talking about how they're doing different things with the integrations for that as well via the CLI. But I did want to hone in on the things that are going to be more user specific, specifically the new release. So the June 2022 version 1.69 is the latest version of Visual Studio Code. And they have finally added a three-way merge editor into the VS Code experience, which is great. So, merging conflicts is always a problem when you're working in a collaborative environment such as Git, and so being able to resolve those and being able to resolve them quickly is always a benefit. So in addition to that, merging in general is always a fraught exercise. So now they have a three-way merge editor. So you see on the left the origin or remote origin, on the right your local changes, and on the bottom the result of those two changes coming into effect. So that was one of many features that are coming in for their latest release of VS Code, which is awesome. In addition to, go ahead.
I'm going to address the comment real quick while we do the segments here. Scott says, I just followed a girl yesterday. Now I see a podcast. Yeah, this is a channel that we have multiple hosts on. So you're probably referring to either Alyssa Nicole or Catherine. And they're both fantastic on their shows as well. So there's lots of good content here. So thanks for coming back. So I love the dual checkbox thing. I think you can do this in Visual Studio as well. It gives you obviously a UI way to merge these things versus I think when you do this in the text editor, you get the little chevrons that point back and forth, and it's very difficult to figure out what you're doing inside there. I like this so much better. So that's a definite plus.
Yeah. Another user-centric feature, which I haven't turned on yet, but I'm going to. I've just been so busy just doing other things, is the new Command Center. So the Command Center is something that they've been experimenting with for a while, and you can now enable it. There's an enable setting for this. It's window.command center. And what that does, it just basically replaces the normal title bar and allows you to do things like quick searches for files and things like that in line with VS now, VS Code, which is cool.
So this is in place of, so you don't have to hit the hotkeys anymore to bring this up. You just have it right there available in the bar.
You can hit question mark and immediately you're brought to that line, that Command Center environment. So very cool.
Gotcha. Nice.
There's also a do not disturb mode. I think they borrowed this from a variety of OSs. So this is oftentimes when you load up projects or you do certain things, linters, static analysis, compile time things, new libraries, etc. They can basically give you all these toasts on the right bottom. So you can disable that now with a do not disturb mode, which is cool.
Like it. They need to publish an API so you can hook it to your desk and put one of those little light bars up that they use in industry, have the red light go on, leave me alone. I wonder if
Sure.
this would work on my dogs too, because they were harassing me. I was rushing to get to the show too because they were like, "Hey, we need to go out now, like
Yes.
now, like we're not
Yes.
going to wait for your show to be over because if you do, you're gonna be cleaning up something." So
That's right. Another big feature is shell integration. So this is something that they've been talking about for a while, but it's finally out of preview. So now what you can do is you can integrate with your favorite shell, be it PowerShell, Z Shell, Bash, whatever, and you can enable that now within this latest release of VS Code. And so this basically brings forward that experience and up and through VS Code now. So VS Code has had a terminal integration for a long time, but being able to do shell integration, that is what is running your native shell environment, now provides you that experience within VS Code, which is cool.
yeah, so I personally use Hyper lately.
Of course you do.
Hyper.
I would expect nothing less.
So I've been using Hyper. I also use conemu. Like I always have a hard time using the shells or terminals inside of the editor because I just use different stuff outside. So it'd be interesting to see if this sways me any to use the internal one versus just jumping out to the one that I have.
Right.
So we'll see.
There's a bunch of other features as well. Commit to source control now has a commit action button for Git repositories, which you might wonder, like, why hasn't that been around? But basically, in previous releases, they had publish and sync. And so now they have a new one, which is the commit action button. So that it's also exposed via another setting. Everything is like driven by settings in VS Code, which is awesome.
Yeah. I like the whole like JSON settings file that you have.
Yeah.
It's easy to control and figure things out.
Yep. Another feature, I mean, this is a big release. That's why we're just mentioning them. So another feature is refactoring with preview. So if you go to the editor section, they talk about this where it will actually show you the change between what you've done. So you can actually now trigger this. It works, as it says, just like refactor, but it opens up a new preview panel now, which is nice.
Oh, okay. I see.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty handy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tons of other stuff as well. They've done a bunch of changes for VS Code for the web. If you scroll down, there's a section on the VS Code server. I won't mention that, but they talk about how there's some really interesting innovations being done there around their code server. And so I'll be keeping an eye on that, but it's a bit early right now because they're only making it available as a private preview. But yeah, it's kind of interesting for what's happening there. As far as preview features, which is always kind of interesting to see what's coming, TypeScript 4.8, Markdown link validation, setting profiles, a whole bunch of other things as well are coming to fruition in the next version. And if you are at all curious at seeing some of these things, you can always download the Insiders build. So that's easy. You can run it side by side. If you're at all curious, if you haven't done that before, it's very easy to do. And you can just get a sense of what's coming.
I like these profiles. I wish this worked in Visual Studio. There's been extensions that let you do this before, but they don't quite. Oops, I hit the wrong link there. They don't quite always work out right. Every time Visual Studio gets updated, they break and stuff.
Yeah.
This is cool because you can create two different profiles here. You can say like, this is my dev profile. I do a lot of presentations. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're not like us DevRel folks and you're at conferences and things. But I know a lot of you do like weekly stand-ups and things where you do present in front of like coworkers and whatnot. It's nice to have like just a button you can press and like flip over the settings. That's something more friendly for presentations and whatnot. Definitely like that.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, anyways, like I said at the beginning, there's lots to grok in this release. Maybe a lot of things came to fruition. That's why it's a big one. But yeah, lots of stuff to take advantage of now, which is awesome.
Support for notebooks. Nice. There's a lot of good stuff in here.
Yes.
There's a lot of releases this week. I thought this one was interesting. It caught my eye, John. This isn't something I would typically use myself, but I can see a lot of folks being interested in it. So I figured I'd bring it up. This is a build and server tool for the JavaScript ecosystem. So if you're doing front end web dev, React, Angular, all of that type of stuff, Svelte, this is uh, Vite. Trying to remember how they pronounce it. Vite, I believe, is it. So it's not Vite, it's Vite. It's a
Vite, yes.
French pronunciation of it.
Yes.
So this is something that's been building for a little while. They've had a couple different versions. 3 is out now. It's supposed to be magnitude faster than something like Webpack. So it would replace that Webpack environment that you're used to in those frameworks.
Yeah.
So this is like the latest, greatest, bleeding edge way to do your front end web dev stuff.
Yeah, I mean the name is apt. I mean, vite in French means fast, and traditionally this has always been a very slow process. So being able to do this now, hopefully, and I mean Evan has obviously contributed in a great way towards improving the overall developer experience relative to frameworks. So it's not a surprise that he continues to work on various aspects like the build aspect. So he was the creator of Vue.js, and now he's been working on this. So if you're at all curious, Vite is basically a build tool. It's super fast, and will allow you to get around the front end tooling problems that we commonly experience when doing builds. This is just the nature of the business, I guess.
It's supposed to be really good at like incremental builds.
Yes.
Some of the older tech, it's rebuilding the entire app every time something gets changed. So it's doing incrementals and all that stuff.
Yeah, I've become a fan of PNPM, which stands for Performance NPM, Performant NPM rather. And so there's definitely ways in which you can get around some of these limitations that some tools have. NPM is really good at sucking down a lot of data for packages and stuff. So just things like this, tools like this are wonderful that they're coming out and being made available broadly, which is great.
Yep, looks like some good stuff. We've got an AWS announcement, the Streamlined deployment for .NET applications.
Yeah, so if you're doing deployment to any AWS resource, there's a variety of options available. Octopus Deploy, hint, hint. So this is the tool that they have made available for developers. It's an integration within VS Code and VS. They also have a CLI integration with the .NET CLI. I don't like the way they do this, though. It feels really clunky to me. And of course, you work for Octopus, of course you're going to be biased. Yeah, of course. I think we do a way better job than this. But, in the spirit of transparency and honesty, I thought I would just mention in case you're using this is an option. I would highly encourage you to check out Octopus Deploy as an alternative, but there you go. So
awesome.
Yes.
.NET 7 preview 6. So .NET 7's chugging along.
Yes.
We're looking for, we're getting closer to November every day. And that's when we expect the release of .NET 7. So lots of new stuff coming in our way. We've got new type converters that have come down. JSON contract customization, custom properties for JSON serialization. A lot of JSON related
serialization.
Stuff
Good, nice.
Oh yeah, template authoring as well is getting updated, so you can write constraints around these, make it easier to find and execute the templates that you want. So overall, just
I don't know if you know the answer to this, but when you say templates, is this like T4 template stuff? I'm dusting off the cobwebs of my .NET knowledge and such, but I'm curious to know. These are .NET templates, okay? So okay, so they've added constraints to .NET templates. All right, interesting. And okay, so these are for sorry, I hadn't read this yet. So okay, that's interesting. So these are things that you can obviously utilize in a variety of ways.
Yeah, exactly. So this, this will make templating much easier for folks, and creating them is a lot easier now. You used to have to use T4. You don't quite have to use that anymore. You can just kind of build a project and go, I want this to be a template, and you can build that into a template.
So yeah, we should be clear. Like T4 templating is really good for code gen, whereas .NET templates are really good for like project scaffolding and things like that. And so when you say template, people obviously ask a lot, like, what do you mean template? Like for project code, what are we doing? So yeah.
That's good for the clarification. There's a lot of different stuff happening there. And
yes.
I'm missing a link here, so I'm just going to navigate to it.
Okay.
ASP.NET got a release as well. So
good.
Roth with the ASP.NET Core Preview 6.
Ooh, request decompression. That's good. Okay, cool. That often causes a problem. We see this sometimes. We get these HP 411 errors that come back because of this sometimes, and that's because what happens is when you have large, so either if you have large requests that do uploads via an HP post, or there's compression algorithms in between. Middleware can muck stuff up basically. So this is interesting. Support for broadly deflate gzip. Good, excellent, awesome.
Yep. So that was actually a community contribution, by the way. Looks like
wicked.
So good stuff there. Output cache middleware.
Rate limiting middleware. I'm sure GitHub will use that.
Yeah. Trying to get to. Oh, here we go. More template talk here. So we're talking about project templates again. These are empty project templates. So very pared down project templates that don't have the samples and stuff in them. So when you create a Blazor WebAssembly empty app or app empty, you're not going to get like counter.razor and all of that stuff.
Yes.
So, I know a lot of us have done like new class library. First step is to delete class 1.cs. Like that's the idea here. It's like, give me the bare minimum I need to run this thing. And that's all I want. So we've got one for Blazor server and Blazor WebAssembly. So that's nice.
Cryptography supporting WebAssembly. That's good.
WebAssembly. I actually ran into this a while back, and I'm trying to remember what I was doing. I think it might have had something to do with ML.NET. I can't remember, but I remember cryptography not being there, and I could not.
Yeah.
The thing I was trying to use.
This is pretty important. You need to make sure that these libraries exist for a variety of reasons. And you may think, come on, isn't this a solved problem? We've got protocols, we've got everything we need. It's like, no, we still need some of these things.
This is really handy to have on the client side, especially if you're, you shouldn't send sensitive data through query strings and stuff, but sometimes you still want to obfuscate things that are going across query strings. And I've used cryptography for that before. So you just like hash the thing and embed it into the query string and send it along. So people aren't tinkering with that.
Yeah, like you can rely on protocols for sure, but sometimes there's things you want to make sure that you do before transmitting, excuse me, brain's not working, transmitting across the wire, either on the server side or even on the client side. So in the case of WebAssembly on the client side, presumably, because it can also work on the server, but on the client side, presumably, this would be like, okay, I'm about to do an HTTP post. Yes, I can rely on HTTPS, etc. But I'll still, encrypt values, etc. Before I transmit.
Yeah,
like that.
Makes again, you can obfuscate things from the user, so
and also
you're not submitting erroneous data and stuff like that.
The other thing I was thinking is like validating signatures. If you're doing anything with regards to like downloading anything dynamically on the fly and processing, you may want to validate signatures and things of those things before you actually utilize them to ensure that they haven't been tampered with. So there's a variety of reasons why you want that.
I'm gonna use this to write Blazor coin, the latest currency.
That's right, Blazor coin. I like it.
Custom elements are no longer experimental in Blazor. So what custom elements are similar to what Angular just did, where you can write an Angular component and then you can publish that component as a platform agnostic component.
Yes.
So I could publish my Blazor component and use it in Angular, and I could publish my Angular component and use it in Blazor, and so on and so
You
forth.
got your peanut butter in my chocolate. You got your chocolate in my peanut butter. Yes, I understand.
So those, like the counter component you use for an example is like capitalized counter, but then when you render this out to a custom
Your
element,
tag. Yeah.
it becomes an HTML tag of my counter, and then you can use that in a JavaScript app if you'd like. So that's
Awesome.
pretty interesting stuff. They included a quote experimental, that's their terms, not mine, quick grid component for Blazor. I think I'm just going out on a limb here from just past experience with this topic. And I think they might have done this to kind of show folks that Blazor can be performant in this scenario. A lot of people try to write these things on their own, and it's not an easy task to do this performantly. So I think this is a kind of a, they're not looking to publish like a grid component that can do a lot of things, but they want to show kind of the performance behaviors of Blazor. And they put this together as a kind of a lightweight grid that's more than just an HTML table, but then not forcing people to like write this from scratch either.
Right.
So it's kind of a nice entry level grid that performs very quickly.
Proof's
There's
in the pudding, of course.
you know,
They only throw about 7 objects in there. I'm like, okay, well, throw 7,000, see what happens.
well, we worked with them on our engineering team at Telerik, and Microsoft worked with them in the past on something like this to get a kind of a benchmark set up
Okay.
to kind of prove out what the fastest grid possible could be, because we wanted to make sure that our data grid at Telerik was like it was the fastest compared to that baseline. And without a
Shootout, I like it.
baseline, we didn't know like, is our grid fast enough? Like, are there any performance issues in it? So we kind of teamed up with them for a little while. Steve Sanderson helped us quite a bit to kind of build like a little bit of a test bed and benchmark these things out.
Nice.
And once we got the baseline, we're like, okay, now we know the goal that we have to hit. Like this is the minimum,
Yes.
the fastest grid possible that anyone could possibly build. Then when we add our features on it, we'll know how much they're impacting that performance. So it looks like that's where that came from to me.
Okay.
But now they're publishing it publicly, and so other people can use it, which is nice. gRPC JSON transcoding. That is over my pay grade. I don't know what that means.
gRPC is a binary protocol espoused by Google. It's used in context with protocol buffers. So there's we won't get into it, but there's a variety of ways in which you can serialize.
I don't know what multi-segment parameters are in the context of gRPC. I am not.
You can define contracts in protocol buffers, and so those can be as input parameters or output parameters for your gRPC. There's just a lot of stuff there. So
Map group supports more extension methods. I think this is an ASP.NET Core minimal API thing. So we're getting
and then feedback.
Where's
feedback? What's that feature? I haven't heard of that.
That's where you email Dan and you're like, hey Dan.
Yes.
No.
Dude, what's the deal?
Don't email.
Like Seinfeld.
Leave your feedback.
What's the deal with multi-segment
it's not Pastor Daniel
parameters?
Introducing the Azure Developer CLI, a faster way to build apps in the cloud.
For the cloud, not in the cloud, but for the cloud. Yes. So again, similar to the AWS developer tool, this is a new CLI for this is complementary to the AZ tool. So the AZ tool is really good at it's typically used by folks who manage Azure resources. The AZD tool is a new tool. It's a new CLI tool that allows you to basically init, provision, and deploy projects that you build to Azure. So it's a complementary tool, integrates with the VS as well, mostly driven via the command line. They have taken one of my favorite features of a product called Waypoint from HashiCorp, which is the command up, which is a composite task. What it does is it basically takes a template that so basically when you want to create a new project, you'll use a template. And this might be in a GitHub repo, for example. So you go to this, to do Node.js Mongo template, which is some GitHub repo, for example, and you say AZ init, and then you point to a template, and then it just, splats that out onto the hard disk, and then away you go. Well, AZD will use that template and then init, provision, and deploy using that template. AZD up is a combination of those three commands. So the Azure Developer CLI is oriented to help developers build these things out, create these projects, etc. So it comes with a bunch of commands. I like the look of it. I haven't used it. It's just been announced. I would argue, again, Octopus Deploy does a really, really good job of doing this, so consider that. But if this is more of your fancy, then here you go. So the idea is you can pull down a template, you provision your environment, you then deploy, etc., etc. So this is, again, oriented towards developers and the developer experience.
Interesting stuff. Like, I always see humor in like what we do, and if you are somebody from the outside world looking at this line just reads comically. Like, this might as well be another foreign language to most people.
Okay.
The fact that I understand a fraction of it makes it humorous to me.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, command line tools, command line interfaces are, a lot of people reasonable people will disagree and make arguments that say, why don't I just use the UI? Why don't I just use the Azure portal to do all my work? And that's fine. That's no problem. But after a while, you get tired of holding your mouse and clicking everywhere. And eventually you just want to type commands. And, I think a CLI can facilitate that in a great way.
Commands are much more scriptable too. I mean, let's not forget that. So
automation contexts matter. Yes.
You're provisioning out like servers regularly, virtual machines, things like that.
Yeah. The thing we often forget is that, after a while, we want computers to do the work for us. Like, computers are, as I like to quote Richard Campbell, computers are amplifiers. They either amplify your intelligence or they amplify your stupidity. And I think that when you use computers for what they're meant to do, which is just to do a task repeatedly and really quickly, this is a good automation context for you to, drive towards. Now, that being said, most CLIs today are written in a way that is not very approachable towards humans. Like, they are driven, that we still are holding on to this heritage around Unix and having small composable applications that can pipe into each other. And more often than not, CLIs, especially today, CLIs are used more and more by humans. And, the automation context matters for sure, but the human experience also matters. And so there's this sort of philosophy afoot where CLIs should, by assumption, support automation through scripting or whatnot, but they should take care towards what's the interaction experience, what's the interaction mode like when you're using a CLI? Does it help you fall into that pit of success, et cetera, et cetera?
And it's time to segue into some bill paying. DevReach is coming. DevReach is a conference that us folks at Progress put on. So for Scott, who, quote, followed a girl yesterday, which that sounds creepy in different contexts now that I say it. I'm kidding. I followed a girl on Twitch yesterday, and now he's watching a podcast. The folks that you see on this channel will be speaking at such a conference. So if you look, we've got a huge list of speakers. This is going to be free online, by the way, or you can get tickets to come see us in person. But Alyssa, who's probably the person streaming yesterday, will be there speaking as well. And then we've got some amazing folks through the community, some Microsoft folks as well. I recognize that guy. I mean, it's just a great lineup of people that are from all different technologies all over the world, and they're going to come out to Boston and speak about what they're interested in and what they're working on, and it'll be fantastic. So make sure you check out DevReach. Again, free virtual conference. just make sure you register ahead of time so we can plan accordingly. And then if you want to come in person, you can do that as well. And that is a nice way to actually meet folks that are interested in the same technology you are and talk about these things. So make sure you come out to DevReach and check us out soon. John, let's move on to some more news.
Sure. This recently hit my radar, the Decompiler Explorer. This is an homage to the Compiler Explorer, which has been around for a long time. The Decompiler Explorer allows you to basically do a comparison between various decompilers that are used in the C community. And so these will spit out based on the files that you upload. There is a samples section for this. So if you check that out, it can, if you pick one of those, for example, and say, try that out, hello world, it will show you what the decompilation of that file will be in various decompilers. As I said before, this is an homage to the Compiler Explorer, except in the reverse. So the Compiler Explorer is a tool that will show you what the compiler will do based on various compilers for the input program you have on the left-hand side. So on the left-hand side, we have a program. On the right-hand side, we have the generated assembly that the compiler will do. And so just a nice way of just showing kind of like, okay, this is what we should expect. Now, the drop-down list in the right-hand side will show the various compilers there. So we're using GCC. You can see there's tons of different compilers that you can use. And we'll show you the resulting assembly from each one. So I just thought this was kind of like a fun tool to play around with and see the comparisons. So compilation, decompilation, pick your poison and compare.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
You got like the human readable code and then the machine readable code.
What are you saying? C is a write-only language? Is that what you're saying?
It's pretty cool stuff. I remember having to write a little bit of
sure,
type of thing. Just
jump not equal, etc.
Learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. This is a nice article that I read up on GitHub. This is the ReadMe project, which is like a blog from the folks at GitHub that are highlighting things in the community. And they wrote a piece about functional programming is finally going mainstream. Seems like
I think this article gets written every year.
It does.
Like every year. Yeah, exactly. This is the year. I'm telling you, this is the year that functional programming finally makes headway. Yeah.
I thought it was pretty interesting because they interviewed folks that are GitHub like project publishers,
leaders, contributors.
Yeah. So they have open source projects that have something to do with functional programming, and one of the ones they kick off is actually a project that I use from time to time.
Okay.
And this is the C# functional extensions library. It's linked somewhere, but yeah, he's talking about how he uses this in his work environment and why he decided to write it and that type of thing. And there's not just him in there. There's other people in here as well that have stories about what they're using and why they're using it. And I thought that was interesting, especially this one, considering, F# does exist, and, they didn't want to totally convert everything to F# and still wanted to do functional. So he ended up writing the C# library that's really popular now. So there's stuff in there like that. Multiple. It's quite a long.
Yeah, if you were to ask me, I think the main contributing factors to the rise in popularity of functional programming include, or not limited to, I'll use my lawyer speak, AWS Lambda and Azure Functions. That alone made a huge impact, and serverless in general basically made a huge impact in the hearts and minds of developers who are targeting these things. And it kind of just flipped the switch inside their head saying, oh, I can do it this way. And yeah, it's actually quite easy. That's one. The second one, I think, is Go. Go has just totally taken over the CI/CD ecosystem. If you think about all the plumbing and all the tooling that is built in Go, Kubernetes, all the CLIs that you're seeing, that CLI we just showed, the Azure Developer CLI, it's built in Go. Go has web frameworks. Go is used more and more these days, and it was one of the most popular languages cited in the Stack Overflow developer survey, which we cited a couple of shows ago, I think Go has had a massive contributing factor towards the rise of popularity in functional programming as well, because it's very approachable and the tools are awesome. I don't think .NET and F# have moved the needle all that much. I as much as that hurts me to say, I don't think they've made the huge contribution that those other ones have. And I think that serverless and Go are the two main contributing factors that have really brought to the forefront the power of functional and why you may want to utilize it. And obviously it can be used in a variety of ways for good and for evil, I guess. I don't know, for good and for bad, I guess is a better way to say it. In terms of, the things that you have to target. I think the future is definitely bright. I think a lot of people are looking at this as like, yeah, this is something I want to do. Now, in addition to those, there's other languages as well, Clojure, and others that get mentioned. Java has a lot of takes in this. I don't know if they're really moving the needle, Haskell, etc.
Haskell's mentioned in here. Lisp,
Yeah.
Clojure, those are mentioned.
Yeah.
I interviewed Gabriela Gonzalez.
I like Lisp. I like
about...
Scheme. I did a lot of that in university. If you like, they will wear out your parentheses keys, so just be aware of that. But yeah, I think if you want to get a good start in functional, my recommendation is start with Go. Go is incredibly approachable. It's easy to pick up. It's really, really nice. It's multi-platform, which is a huge win. So they really solved the compiler problem, the platform problem there. Serverless is another way if you're into the web angle bracket stuff. So serverless is something that you can take up and compel you towards that sort of idea of everything's a function. So yeah, definitely things to consider.
Yeah, React is a good gateway into this stuff as well. I agree with Gabriella on this one. Encourages a more functional way, even if it's not purely functional.
It's not, but it does. That is true. React does drive you, not kicking and screaming, but it does drive you in that direction as well. So yes,
it is terribly difficult to do pure functional on UI, on user interface, just because of the stateful nature of the user interface.
Yeah, I hear you.
The thing that the person sitting behind the computer consuming is state. It is state.
Fair enough.
You're looking at state on the screen. So
fair enough. And the way we get around that is globals.
Yep. So try to be super pure functional on a UI is
sure
drive you to insanity. So React is a good middle ground. I think it's a good gateway to getting the functional line of thinking.
Fair enough.
And then, of course, John, we've got a special thing. I know you will enjoy. It's very meta too. Here we go.
Why not?
On this episode of Can It Play Doom? Doom can play Doom.
Oh, good. What I've always wanted.
So I watched the YouTube video from the guy that did this.
Please tell me they used the Inception soundtrack for this demo.
So what he did is he was looking through the scripts and things inside of the Doom engine and found one that could load and execute code.
Sure, why not?
So he loaded and executed the Doom code and then had it render on one of the faces inside the game. So there we go.
Oh my god.
So he built a level for the pure sake of playing Doom within Doom. Yeah. So
my god.
There you go. Playing Doom inside Doom.
It's like a portal. It's hilarious.
It's very. Look at this.
Oh god, they went to asteroids.
Got asteroids and everything in there. So just totally hijacking stuff in the Doom engine. So you
because why not?
Yeah, we haven't done enough.
As much as I look at some of this stuff and I think, this is such a giant waste of time. We have bigger problems to fix in the world, et cetera, et cetera. This I can understand why people would do stuff like this just for the lulz, So
yeah, I mean this is how people learn to do stuff too. I know Doom is the reason I learned how to do half the stuff I know. And I will go off the cuff on some really random fact sometime. And
Doom in Doom, chocolate Doom.
some of
Code
my
execution exploit. All right.
coworkers and things are like, and when did you have time to learn that,
Sure.
obscure thing? Like I can drop into like a or not Visual Studio, the like 3ds Max or something and just start
Yeah.
drawing like a model
You
or
know
something.
what?
Like, where
You
did
know what
this
he's
come
done?
from?
Yeah, you know what he's done? This person has created basically a game launcher from within Doom. So it's
Yeah.
like he's walking around and he's looking at various different games. So that's
What's
that's
great
kind
is
of funny.
it's projecting
What
it
the
on
Yeah,
to a
the funniest
onto a face
funniest
in the game.
I don't think we've shown this, but there is one of the original ports I saw, not port, but like kind of like variation of Doom was what was it now? It was running on Linux or some distro thereof, and the demons were processes. And if you shot it with a rocket launcher, it would do a kill -9
Oh,
on
jeez.
that process. So basically, it was like an open map, and the developer had put all the running processes on the surface of the map, and they were just walking around sort of thing. And then if you shot one, it would kill that process on your machine. So fun
That could
stuff.
be dangerous.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. This is I don't normally give shouts out to Apple just because they annoy me. But this one I thought was interesting. Not particularly that useful, I don't think. Just the fact that this technology's come so far in
Sure.
the last decade, I think it's pretty amazing. So remember, like I used to be really good at Photoshop, and like one of the like Photoshop flexes was how well you can get something out of its background and
Yeah.
kind of isolate that object from the background so you can put it in a new background and make advertisements and things like that. Well, now you can just go right into the iPhone and poke your finger on something and it will immediately isolate the object and let you paste it into other apps on your iPhone. It's instantaneous. And Photoshop used to be like the only way to do this. I remember going back as far as like going into Paint and like pixel by pixel having to do this before Photoshop was like obtainable piece of software. And just to be able to like point and click at something on the screen. I don't think I have the right there's the section of the demo I was looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
So here's got the dog, and then you want to take the dog out of the background, you just tap and hold, and now you can take that and throw that into something else, and boom, it's isolated out of the background. It does a
Sounds
good
like
job at it too.
it does. It sounds like they've taken basically the magic wand tool in Photoshop and kind of made it pretty usable for the
Yeah,
finger. So
I think AI's done a lot with this. So you've got
sure.
things like Zoom and video conferencing software like
Yes.
Teams and whatnot that can do
Zoom.
this in
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
time now. And essentially, it's virtual green screen. And
Of course, everyone will say that Apple invented this, and
yeah,
they're the first ones to ever do this. So you know what this reminds me of is when you started talking about this, I thought about that graphic designer James Friedman he was like kind of like a troll. He was a Photoshop troll, and people would
oh
submit
yes, I
work
love those.
requests and say, "Would you mind removing my ex-boyfriend from this photo?" And he'd be like, "Sure." And he would remove the ex-boyfriend, but then the whole background would be converted into like Armageddon or something like that. And he's like, "Here, I did it. Here you go." So
Yeah, those are awesome.
mm,
So that's it for the news this week. That's all we got, John. Any
wicked.
final words?
Nope. I guess we'll see you next week.
No, next week.
No, next week. Never
So
mind.
I'm
Who
going
said
on
that?
vacation, a staycation next week. So I've got
Very good.
some family coming to visit, and I will not be doing shows next week. So
All right.
we will see you in 2 weeks. I'll be back in the end of July with more shows and more guests and all sorts of fun stuff. So looking forward to
Wicked.
chatting with you after the break, John.
Have a good staycation.
All right, my friend. Take care and bye-bye.